Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you sent over this really interesting stack on geothermal HVAC.
Yeah, quite a mix, right?
Definitely. We've got specs on a Climate Master unit, a YouTube breakdown of coefficients of performance COP, and even stuff from a geothermal installer.
Right.
So the mission today, I think, is to really dig into all that. We want to understand the core of geothermal efficiency, what it means, practically.
Exactly. You've got a good handle on the basics already, it seems. We're going to build on that, unpack how it works, but also, like, the specifics behind its efficiency.
Good.
Get a clearer picture of how using the Earth's, stability can actually power your home comfort.
Right, because fundamentally, geothermal heating and cooling, it's about using that steady temperature just underground, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A few feet down,
Mm-hmm.
it's surprisingly consistent. It's a way to heat and cool using that, and it feels like a really sustainable path forward.
It really is. And to make it concrete, you flagged that specific system, the Climate Master Tranquility 30 SC Premier 2-stage.
Yeah, that one.
So it's a residential geothermal heat pump. The numbers you pulled are key. Average pop of 4.0.
Okay.
And an EER, energy efficiency ratio, of 19.00. Then there are the capacity ranges, heating 17,800 up to 54,000 BIA.
Right.
Cooling's 26,300 to 74,700 beta. It's a two-stage unit, uses R454B refrigerant. These are like the real-world specs we can anchor to.
Okay, perfect. Let's dive right into that COP idea then.
Yeah.
It seems absolutely central to why geothermal is efficient.
It is?
The definition we have says it's the ratio of useful heating or cooling you get compared to the energy you put in to get it.
Exactly.
So it's basically output over input.
Right.
More heating or cooling for less electricity.
You got it. Higher hop, better efficiency, lower running costs. Simple as that.
But here's the interesting part. Unlike my old electric space heater, which just makes heat from electricity COP of 1.
Right. One-to-one conversion.
Heat pumps, including geothermal, have COPs way higher than 1 because they're moving heat, not just making it.
Precisely. That's the fundamental difference. They aren't generating heat entirely from electrical work. They're leveraging existing heat energy and just, relocating it.
That YouTube video analogy was pretty good for this.
Which one was that again?
The hot, crowded room one. Cooler outside, you open a window, put a fan in it.
Oh, right.
The fan uses a little energy, but it moves a lot of existing cool air in, cooling the room effectively. The fan isn't making cold.
Excellent analogy. That's exactly the principle. The heat pump is the fan, in a way. It moves heat. In winter, it pulls heat from the ground, the source, and pumps it into your house.
And summer.
Reverses, pulls heat from your house and dumps it into the cooler ground.
Okay, now the notes mention COP can be different for heating versus cooling. Is there like a typical difference?
Yeah, there often is. For the same system, same conditions, the heating COP is usually about 1 point higher than the cooling COP.
1 point higher. Why is that?
Well, think about it. When it's heating, the energy the compressor uses the electricity driving the system. That energy itself also gets released as heat into the building.
Ah, okay.
So you get the heat it moved from the ground, plus the waste heat from the compressor's work. It adds up.
Got it. That makes sense. It also sounds like COP isn't just a fixed number for a unit. It depends on the conditions, like temperature differences.
Oh, absolutely. Critical point. COP is highly dependent on operating conditions. The bigger the temperature difference the pump has to work against between the source and the destination, the harder it works.
Then the lower the COP.
Exactly. It's much, much easier, more efficient to move heat between two places that are closer in temperature.
The info mentioned theoretical limits, too, based on Carnot efficiency.
Right, the physics ideal. It cited an example, ground source heat pumps in Europe. Theoretically, maybe a heating COP around 8.8.
Why?
But real-world seasonal COPs, often 3.5 or even less, there are always practical losses in the system.
What kind of losses bring it down from, like 8.8 to 3.5? That's a big drop.
Well, you need energy to run the pumps that circulate the fluid through the ground loops. That's one thing.
Okay.
Then there's the efficiency of the heat exchangers themselves. How well heat moves between the ground fluid and the refrigerant. And just heat loss in the piping. It all adds up. Research is always trying to close that gap, of course.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, so bringing it back to geothermal specifically, how does it use this COP principle to get those good numbers we saw?
It all comes down to that stable ground temperature. That's the geothermal advantage.
Because it doesn't swing wildly like the air temperature does.
Exactly. A few feet down, it's relatively constant year-round, maybe, 50, 60 degrees Fahrenheit in many places, depending on location.
So the heat pump isn't fighting extreme temperatures.
Precisely. Compare that to an air source heat pump in winter trying to pull heat from, say, 10-degree air, or in summer trying to dump heat into 95-degree air.
Much bigger temperature difference, much harder work.
Right. The geothermal system has a much smaller temperature gap to bridge both winter and summer. That directly translates to a higher, more stable COP.
That installer you found, Hartzell's Heat and Air, they really hammered this point, claiming potential savings, what was that, up to 70%?
Yeah, up to 70%.
Right.
Because they're harnessing that stable earth temperature, it avoids the efficiency penalty that air source units face in very hot or very cold weather.
And looking back at that Climate Master unit, the Tranquility 30, its COP range was 3.8 to 4.2 at full load, but even better, 4.1 to 4.6 at part load.
Yes, that's really interesting, the part load efficiency.
What does part load actually mean here, and how does the two-stage operation fit in?
Okay, so two-stage means the system isn't just on or off. It has like a low gear and a high gear.
Like a car.
Sort of. It can run at a lower, more energy-sipping stage most of the time when the heating or cooling demand isn't extreme.
Right.
It only kicks into the higher stage using more power when needed, like during a really cold snap or a heat wave.
And part load is when it's running in that lower gear.
Exactly. Or just generally operating below its maximum capacity. And systems are often most efficient during these part load conditions, as that Climate Master data shows.
Why is that? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, it's partly because components like fans and compressors can often operate more efficiently at lower speeds, and running longer at a lower output generally provides more even temperatures and better humidity control, too.
So it runs more often, but uses less power each time, and is actually more efficient overall.
That's the idea. It's key for real-world savings because your system rarely needs 100% power all the time.
Makes sense. Now, Hartzell's also talked about the ground loops, horizontal, vertical, even pond loops. How critical is the loop design?
Oh, absolutely critical. The loop is the connection to your energy source, or sink the earth.
Right.
Getting it sized and installed correctly is paramount. You need enough pipe in the ground with good thermal contact to effectively transfer the required amount of heat.
And if it's undersized?
Performance suffers. The fluid returning to the heat pump might be too cold in winter or too warm in summer, forcing the pump to work harder, lowering your COP.
And the type horizontal, vertical pond that just depends on the site.
Pretty much. Horizontal loops need a lot of yard space, but are often cheaper to install.
Digging trenches instead of deep holes.
Right. Vertical loops go deep, great for smaller lots or rocky terrain, but drilling is more expensive. Pond loops are fantastic if you have a suitable body of water nearby.
But the goal is always the same. Efficient heat exchange with the ground or water.
Exactly. Good design, good installation, good soil connectivity, they all contribute to better return temperatures and, ultimately, a higher COP.
Okay, so we've got the efficiency angle covered pretty well with COP and the ground loops. What about other benefits? Hartzell's mentioned a few.
Yeah, beyond just energy savings, there's the environmental aspect. It's greener, right?
Lower carbon footprint using renewable earth energy.
Definitely. Compared to burning fossil fuels directly or using electricity generated from fossil fuels, it's much more sustainable.
In comfort. They said it was quieter, more consistent.
Generally, yes. The main unit is inside, like a furnace, not a noisy condenser unit sitting outside your window, like with traditional AC.
Ah, good point.
And that stable ground source helps deliver very even heating and cooling. Less fluctuation, fewer hot or cold spots in the house.
What about how long these things last? That was another point.
Big difference there. The underground pipe loop itself is incredibly durable, protected from weather, UV rays.
Right.
It can easily last 50 years, maybe more. The indoor unit, the heat pump itself, typically lasts longer than traditional furnaces or ACs, too often 20-25 years with good maintenance.
Wow, 50 plus years for the groundwork. That's impressive. Indoor air quality. Any benefit there?
Potentially, yes. Geothermal systems often do a better job with humidity control than standard systems.
Which helps with mold and stuff.
Exactly. And they can easily be paired with high-efficiency air filters or other air purification systems. So cleaner, more comfortable indoor air is definitely a potential perk.
And maybe the bottom line for some folks, the financial side, beyond just energy bills, home value.
It's often seen as a premium feature. So yes, it can potentially increase home value. And the return on investment comes from those long-term energy savings.
Plus, you mentioned tax credits or rebates. Both Climate Master and Hartzell's hinted at that.
Right. There are often federal, state, or even local utility incentives available for installing high-efficiency systems like geothermal. That can definitely help offset the higher initial cost. You absolutely need to check what's available in your specific area.
Okay, so if someone's listening and thinking, maybe geothermal, what are the first things to consider? Suitability.
Yeah, first off, is it feasible for your property? New construction is often easier, but retrofitting is definitely possible.
Depends on the house, the yard.
Right. Yard space is a big one for horizontal loops. But remember, vertical loops are an option for smaller lots. You really need a site assessment from a qualified installer.
Like Hartzell's, the example we had, serving their area in Oklahoma. They stressed specialized training.
Crucial. Geothermal isn't just standard HVAC. You want installers with specific geothermal training and experience. Climate Master has their GeoElite dealer network. Water Furnace is another big name. Look for certified professionals.
Get someone who really knows geothermal design and installation.
Absolutely. It's not a place to cut corners.
Okay, one last piece. Payback period.
Yeah.
We know the upfront cost is higher. How do we explain payback simply?
Right. It's a common question. Think about it like buying solar panels, maybe.
Okay, higher cost upfront than just paying the electric company.
Exactly. But then every month, your electricity bill is lower, sometimes much lower. You're saving money over time.
Right.
The payback period is just how long it takes for those accumulated savings to add up and equal the extra money you initially spent on the panel.
So the time it takes for the savings to pay back the investment.
Precisely. Same with geothermal. Higher initial costs compared to, say, a new furnace and AC unit, but lower monthly heating and cooling bills because of that high COP.
So you track those savings.
Yep. And eventually, those savings recoup the difference in the initial cost. After that point, it's pure savings year after year, plus all the other benefits. It's about recouping that initial investment through lower operating costs over time.
That's a really clear way to put it. Okay, so wrapping this up, geothermal systems look like a seriously efficient way to handle home comfort.
Yeah, tapping into that stable earth temperature really lets them achieve those high COPs we talked about.
Getting more heating and cooling out for the energy you put in.
Definitely. And while, yes, the initial cost is a factor, you have to weigh it against the potential for significant long-term savings.
Plus the environmental benefits, the quiet operation, better comfort, longer lifespan.
Right, and maybe even boosting your home's value. It's a compelling package when you look at the whole picture, a very forward-thinking choice for a lot of people.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. As technology keeps evolving, and we think more about energy costs and sustainability, how central systems like geothermal, systems that cleverly use readily available natural resources, become in how we actually build and live in our homes down the road.
It's a great question. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Definitely worth looking into what local geothermal installers offer and what the potential savings could be right where you live. Thanks for digging into this with us today.